Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America in Washington. This is the Diaspora Forum. I am Kip Stube.
And I'm Jonga Kandemiri.
Tonight we are talking about COVID-19, the recalling of Tendai Biti and his colleagues from Parliament, and other issues.
The Ministry of Health reports that 3 people died yesterday of COVID-19 and 31 tested positive for coronavirus in Zimbabwe.
More than 36,000 people have tested positive for COVID-19 in Zimbabwe since March last year. At least 34,000 people have recovered and 1,507 have succumbed to the disease.
The ministry also reports that almost 40,000 people have been vaccinated since the launch of the country's inoculation program a few weeks ago. Zimbabwe received an initial Chinese donation of 200,000 Sinopharm vaccines a month ago.
The country received another Sinopharm donation on Monday, together with 144,000 doses said to have been bought by the government, according to the Ministry of Information.
At the same time, some teachers' unions are on strike, saying the government should increase their salaries and provide personnel protective equipment and other necessary items to protect them from COVID-19.
In politics, the People's Democratic Party says it has recalled former Finance Minister Tendai Biti, Settlement Kwinya of Mbizo, Ukakapulu of Nkulumane, and others from Parliament.
And in Botswana, more than 300 people are facing deportation to Zimbabwe after they shunned a self-repatriation scheme proposed by the United Nations, Botswana, and Zimbabwe.
And unconfirmed reports say former MDC Alliance Senator James Makore and former MDC-T Secretary General Opet Kudu have joined ZANU-PF.
Wadiwa wateereri, nhasi nyaya tiri kukurukura pachirongwa chedu chandotarisa zviri kuitika kunze kwenyika nezviri kuitika munyika Diaspora Forum. Tiri kutarisa nyaya yekuwanikwa kwemishonga yenhomba mushure mekunge Zimbabwe nezuro yapinza munyika nhomba inoda kusvika zviuru mazana mana kana kuti almost 400,000 yenhomba kubva kuChina yeSinopharm. Tinonzwa kuti hurumende yakapiwa 200,000 vaccines kana nhomba idzodzo neChina, iyo yakatengawo 144,000 asi dzimwe nhau dzichiti yakatenga 200,000. Totarisawo zvakare kuti nezuro vanhu 3 vanonzi vakafa nechirwere cheCovid-19, vamwe 31 chete vachiwanikwa vaine chirwere ichi. Ndezvimwe zvatichatarisa. Totarisawo nyaya tiri kutambira yekunzwa kuti bato rePDP raburitsa kana kuti raita kuti nhengo dzaro dziri muparamende dzavanoti ndedzavo dzinosanganisira vatendai Biti, vasettlement Chikwinya nevamwe hanzi vadzingwe muparamende nebato iroro rePDP. Pamusoro pezvo tiri kutambirawo mashoko ekuti vaimbowe nhengo yeMDC Alliance vakazoenda kuMDC-T vave mutevedzeri wemutungamiri kuMDC-T vaObert Gutu pamwechete navaJames Makore vekuchitungwiza vadzokera kubato reZANU-PF. Tiri kunzwa kuti vari kutambirwa nguva yatiri kutaura iyo inoyi nemutungamiri wenyika vaEmerson Mnangagwa kumuzinda wavo weState House uko. Ndo dzimwe dzenyaya dzatichakurukura. Tozobata nyaya iri kunetsa yevanhu vanoda kusvika 300 kana kuti 300 vari kunzi vachamanikidzwa kubva kuDukwi Farm Refugee Camp iri kuBotswana, kwavanga vagere muhupoteri vachidzokera kumusha kana vanga vasina kunge vakazvipira kudzokera vachida vega kudzokera, yatingati yokuti vabvume vega, chirongwa chokubvuma kudzokera vega. Tinonzwa kuti nezuro kune vanokwana kuita 48 kana kuti 40 vakakwanisa vanga vachitodzoserwa kuZimbabwe. Vatonzwa kuti vasvika kuZimbabwe. Tamboona bazi rezvekudyidzana nedzimwe nyika vari kutaura nyaya yekuti ivavo vakasvika kubva kuBotswana vatanga kunyoreswa kuti vanga vachizowaniswa rubatsiro runopiwa kune vanhu vanenge vabva kunze kwenyika sevapoteresa izvozvo. Ndo dzimwe dzenyaya dzatiri kukurukura idzodzo Gibbs.
Uyakhuluma-ke uJonga Kanameli, yikho konke lokhu esikhuluma ngakho namhlanje Zululandaba siyakhuluma nge-COVID-19 ukuthi kwenzakalani. Siyabona ukuthi nxa sikhuluma khona manje kukhanya ngazani kulabantu abathathu ababuleyo umkhuhlane lo izolo we-COVID-19, kuzokuthi abayi-31 bafumanwe belo mkhuhlane lo. So nxa sikhangela-ke ukuthi sokwenzakaleni kwele Zimbabwe kusukela ngoMbimbito nyakenye sokula 136,000 esababanjwa i-COVID-19 bese kusithi abayidlula 34,000 sebaphepha kumkhuhlane lo kodwa ke abayi-1,507,000 sebabhubha ngenxa yokuthi umkhuhlane lo uyathanyela sibili ifika yakhona 1,507 bese kusithi ke asebehlatshwe ijekiseni ye-Sinopharm bayi-40,000 khonapho ke bayapho sokufika bese kusithi ke siyabona ukuthi eleZimbabwe lisanda kusungula uhlelo lokuhlaba abantu kusetshenziswa i-Sinopharm vaccine ilizwe leZimbabwe lathola 200,000 doses zejekiseni ye-Sinopharm kwele China so ke nxa sikhangela ke khona manje kukhanya ngomvulo iChina iphinde yathi hayi nanto ke futhi okunye silinika khona 200,000 njalo eze-Sinopharm kwathi ke ilizwe leZimbabwe lathenga 144,000 ama-doses nxa sisikhangela ke ababalisi khona manje bathi ngasibili ukuthi kungane izikolo lapha kuhambe kuhle lokho kuvulwe izikolo ngomvulo bayakhonona abanye sibili bakhalala lo msebenzi siyakwazi kule Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe bakhalala umsebenzi bathi bona kabayi emsebenzini noma kanjani so ke kuzobuya ke kwezembangazwe ezepolitics siyabona ukuthi People's Democratic Party ekhokhelwa ke unkosikazi Lucia Matibenga ithi ke owayengugciningcebo kahulumende weZimbabwe umnumzana Tendai Biti kuzobuya usettlement Chikwenya ucacaphulu labanye sokumele bephume edale lephalamende khanya kulokudonsela nokumangalisayo singena njalo kolunye udaba eBotswana kulabantu sibili abedlula 300 abalokhe besala ukusuka khona ngale eDukwi camp bathi bayisaba ukubuyela eZimbabwe kodwa sibonile abayi-48 izolo bebiselwa kwele Zimbabwe sithole njalo ke olunye udaba lokuthi obeku MDC Alliance engusenator uJames Makore kanye lomnumzana Obed Gudu wayengu-MDCT Secretary General bakhanya sebengene kubandla leZANU-PF so yikho konke lokhu esiyaxoxa ngakho ngokuya kwesikhathi namhlanje but first of all let's introduce our first guest and that is Dr. Sifiso Ndlovu of the Zimbabwe Teachers Association. He is based in Harare in Bulawayo, I'm told. Dr. Ndlovu, welcome to the program, sir. Hello, Dr. Ndlovu, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm based in Harare.
Yes, can you go next to your phone so that we can hear you well? So tell us about the situation at schools. We see that ZIMTA has actually released a statement here together with other organizations saying that their members should actually go to classes. They should return to work and just work as usual. Tell us a bit about this.
Thank you very much. Our association, after consulting its members and obviously after having been informed about the situation around the economic situation around the teachers, we came to an understanding, and we believe this is the correct understanding, that we should conditionally open the schools so that we can give the employer the next 14 days to sort out the mess of the salaries. We are merely indicating this because we want to believe that the society in Zimbabwe is expecting a lot from the educators, and they are expecting us to deliver education to the children. And that is what we are doing. This was a very difficult balancing act indeed. Yes, we can confirm that we have encouraged our members to return to school and allow the process of negotiation to go ahead. And we believe, as Zimbabwe, we have the institutional capacity to influence the turn of events favorably. And we are embarking on that vigorously after having been very engaged with the government since February, to and fro exchanging papers on the issues around salaries. And so the first meeting of the NJNCS was very disappointing, and we are saying it was the first meeting. We'll give it an opportunity once more to address the issue again.
Yes, qualifying is into Kuluma.
Yeah, number ukuxoxisana lababalisi abangamalunga ethu abasezindaweni ezitshiyeneyo. Sikubonile sibili ukuthi bathwele nzima ngoba umnotho wabo usuphansi usuncindezelekile. ngakho-ke lokhu sikunanzelela ukuthi kuyinto okumele siyisebenze, siyincedisane labo, sikhale kuhulumende, sidonse njalo ingubo ize kibo. Kodwa lokho singeke sikwenze sihlezi ngemakhaya, singakwenza sisemsebenzini. Ngakho sithe thina ababalisi bethu sibakhuthaza ukuthi hhayi, lanxa sikhala kunjalo kasikhaleni sisemsebenzini, sibe sesisitsho ukuthi sifuna inani elinganani. Nanku phela abazali labantwana besikolo bakhangelele kithi ukuthi sincedise kwezemfundo, ukuthi babuyele esikolweni nabo bazizwe bekholisa ukuthi baqhubekele phambili nemfundo yabo. Thina-ke ngobuncane bethu singabancedisa ngalokho, kodwa sisilwa impi yethu lapha emholo, singavukeli emuva. Lokho sikubambile, njalo silethemba lokuthi thina njengenhlanganiso silawo amandla okuqoda loba yimuphi umnyango kahulumende kuze kuvulelwe sikhulume ngalesi sikhalazo. Okwamanje kasikuqhubeni ngaleyo ndlela. Sesikufakile-ke lokho nakubakhulu ukuthi bakuzwisise. Kanti vele kasizange siqale namhlanje, siqale emuva le ngoFebruwari ukuqhumbaqhumba uhulumende ukuthi kabuye ethebulini sizoxoxa ngendaba yokuthi iholo lihamba lisiya ngaphi ngo-2021.
Jonga.
Yes, welcome to our show, Dr. Ndlovu.
Thank you very much, Jonga.
Thank you. What I wanted to know is what of your members who may say they are incapacitated, what will happen to them if they are not able to go back to school, but as an association, you're urging them to go back to work?
We have indicated, and we have indicated to the government that there are some who will find it very difficult, or who found it difficult last week to resume duty. And we have encouraged government to have a humanistic approach to that kind of situation. Get the assessment correctly and see whether the teacher is genuinely saying so or is only doing it out of probably malice, which is very rare for our members to do so. So that we have said it is the employer's duty to analyze and then see what to do in such circumstances. For example, if a teacher is to travel to one of the remotest areas and they need foreign currency, where will they get that money even before they have been paid? That is a very straight case indicating to you that they will not be able to do so. And anybody who is managing human resources will quickly understand that this teacher has difficulties and they will find a way of doing so. But our encouragement is not that we then decide to collectively get into a job action before we have given the other party enough room to maneuver around this place.
Mm-hmm. And we saw a letter written today by the Zimbabwe Confederation of Public Sector Trade Unions, where they are requesting an urgent meeting to be held over the National Joint Negotiating Council meeting that was held last week and did not bring any fruit. What if that meeting fails to take place this week, as is requested by this confederation? Are you going to urge your members to take action as regard to the previous letter that you wrote, that was written by the Zimbabwe Confederation of Public Service Workers?
When we get to a position of intransigence, we will then deal with the intransigence. But at the present moment, we are going there with utmost good faith. That let us help the nation by engaging in a fruitful or engage in fruitful meetings that do not disadvantage our learners. So as far as we are concerned, that meeting is also of interest to the employer, because it is an issue of national interest that our learners are in schools. It is a matter of national interest that teachers are in schools. We don't see, therefore, anyone failing to respect that. Well, should that happen, we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But we are not going to be burning bridges now. We are going to be creating dialogue and building bridges in order for us to get the best onto the table and put back to the table of our educators. and also the learners back to school. That's the major objective now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Special Ndlovu. You can mute your mic now. Let's cross over to Mr. Opet Masarahure, who is the president of the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe. Welcome to the program, Mr. Masarahure. Are you there, Mr. Masarahure? Can you hear me? Can you unmute, please?
I'm here.
Yes, so we see that ZIMTA is actually saying that their members should go to school. And what's your position on this?
I don't think it's about what ZIMTA says or what we say, but it is the state of condition of the teachers themselves. The teachers are incapacitated. So even if ZIMTA would wish them to be in school or the government want to be in school, they simply can't make it because of the economic challenges they are facing. The teachers can't fly to work. They don't even have bus fare right now because a teacher, you can't be a responsible teacher who leaves your own children at home, then you borrow bus fare to go and teach other people's children. You also need to buy school uniforms, among other basics. So really, the reality on the ground for the genuine teachers in the classroom, they will agree with me that they can't make it to the classroom.
Chonga?
Tinogamuchira muchirongwa chedu vamasaraure.
Ndinotenda mukoja.
Vamasaraure, tiri kuona kuti zvikoro zvakavhurwa chikamu chekutanga kana kuti phase 1 yakavhura nemusi wemuvhuro. Imi nhengo dzenyu dziri kuenda here kumabasa?
Nhengo dzedu hadzisi kukwanisa kuenda kumabasa nenyaya yatinogara tichema yekuti hurumende ivape muhoro unoita kuti vararamewo sevanhu. Kuenda kubasa izvezvi zvakafanana nekusiya vana vako vari mumoto iwo uchitonotsvaka kutandara uri. Hakuna chekudya mudzimba, varaiti havana zvipfeko, havana mari dzekuendesa vana vavo chaivo kuchikoro. Ukatarisa mamwe mafees atiri kuona ekumayunivhesiti, kunove kunodzidzawo vana vevarairidzi anonzi akuidzwa ne250%, asi masalari evarairidzi ainzi achakuidzwa ne25%. Motarisa kuti pamaboarding school panodzidzisa varairidzi chaivo, unoona chikoro chinzi 35,000, 40,000, asi murairidzi wacho achitambira 17,000. Tisati tatenga mainformation. Saka zvazvinongoreva ndezvekuti murairidzi nekuomerwa kwaakaitwa ari parumanadzombe kudai, hapana angamutarisire kuti aende kunodzidza. Kunenge kwakutotarisira kuti pamwe varairidzi vanogona mashiripiti, asi vashoma vanogona mashiripiti pavarairidzi.
Tiri kuonawo sangano reZIMTA riri kukurudzirawo nhengo dzaro kuti dzinge dzichidzokera kumabasa kusvika nhaurirano dziri kuitwa parizvino dzeNational Joint Negotiating Council dzaonekwa kunzi dzagumira papi. Imiwo munotorawo sei danho rekutorwawo nemamwe masangano evarairidzi?
Zvavari kutaura zveZIMTA handizivi kuti ndozvavanotaura mamembers acho ndozvavanenge achitaurawo futiri. Asi kana zviri zvavari kuwirirana nawo ndo varairidzi vashoma vane mashiripiti atanichataura aya. Nekuti izvi hazvisinei nekuti vatungamiriri vacho vari kufungei. Tiri kutarisa zviri paground, tiri kutarisa zviri muhomwe yevanhu. Chiro chido chevanhu chikati tichida kuenda kubasa, hazvisi kuzobudirira kuti vaende. Nyaya yamataura enhaurirano dziri kuitwa, hakuna nhaurirano dziri kuitwa kuejensi. Kunyeberana kana muchigwa kuti kuri kunegoshetwa, mazuva anongowedzerwa, achingoramba achiwedzerwa, vanhu vachimwa putugadzike nezvimwe. Asi hakuna chinobudapo, NJNC hakunegoshetwe, kunongokonsautiwa, vanhu vanongotaura zvishomanini zvavataura, vamwe voti tanonzwa kuvakuru vedu kusvika hurumende yazokofikisa masalari ainoda. Varairidzi nevamwe vabereki totovakurudzira kuti vatijoine musi wa22 March. Pachiri kupinda mumugwagwa tichiratidzira tichiti hurumende ngaikoshese education yenyika yedu. Tikareka kudaro tikuona education yedu ichiparara, mabhaziredzi acharamba achidonha, nhaurirano idzodzo dzichingoitwa, mhuri dzedu dzichafa nezhara, nhaurirano dzichingoitwa, vana vedu vachaita kuenda kuzvikoro kuchikonzi kuri kuitwa nhaurirano.
Thank you so much, Mr. Masarahure. Stay on the line. We're coming back to you. Dr. Ndlovu, I think here there's a crisis in terms of teachers' unions. You have different views on all these kind of things. So how to resolve such an issue, Dr. Ndlovu?
I don't think there is need for us to bother about the multiplicity of opinions. That is how nature puts up issues. We will differ in opinion and in perceptions, but that does not make our position wrong. You will remember even last year, we went for 9 months and we were all crying for capacitation. And we ended up intervening in a way that was dramatic, and which eventually brought in some money to the people. The idea here is not to increase the amount of untaxed policing. It's the idea of what activities and actions will bring food to the table. So the encouragement, I understand here that in terms of the Zimbabwean law, for time immemorial, as far as I can remember, the civil service does not have bargaining powers per se. It has got consultative powers. And that is what has always been going on. And that is a matter of law, which we have been challenging. Unfortunately, it has not changed. And we've been operating under that unfortunate circumstance. That's the reality. But it does not mean that then we should abandon the education of our children. If we had done that in yesteryear, then we would not have other teachers who trained later or who joined later being educated. That means every member of society would have been left out there cold and uneducated. So it took some matter of sacrifice and the balancing act to get both the education going and get the needs of the educators addressed. And that is where we are now. Get the needs of the educators addressed, but at the same time, get the interest of the learners also protected. Because these are the future teachers, these are the future leaders, these are the future scientists and doctors that we must be building now. Otherwise, Zimbabwe is now being left behind in the race of developing its human resources. That we cannot afford. It's a generational challenge which we must face.
Yes, siyakubona khonokho ke ukukhulumayo baba Ndlovu. Sicela ufake ngesintu sibili ukuthi khonapha kuyo phambili kwenziwani njengoba kukhanya ngazani i-ATUs izimta lali lonke nje lehlukene kakhulu ngokuthi libambe njani udaba lwesikolo. Bese kubuya ke sokulenye inhlanganiso futhi esibunjiwe koBulawayo ethi bayasola kakhulu okwenziwa izimta okwenziwa i-PTUZ okwenziwa i-ATUs lamanye lezi inhlanganiso ezizimele zodwa. So kuyo phambili kumele likwenze njani ukuze phela lilungisele abantwana, lilungisele ababalisi labanye abantu abasebenza esikole.
Ukwehlukana kwemibono kuyimvelo nendabuko yomdabu yomuntu. Singeke sakusola ukuthi kungani umuntu ebamba umbono otshiyeneyo. Sengathi sinjenjena nje sehlukene ngokholo langethemba loba singathi ezindaweni ezitshiyeneyo. Lokho kuyimvelo. Kodwa kakuthi ukuthi ngenxa yokuba wena awukholwa kulokho ekwenzayo, sokumele ungakulandeli kumbe ungakukholwa la. Ungakukholwa ungakukholwa. Kodwa okumele kuqakathekiseke ukuthi kuletha mphumela bani ukuthi sihlale sinjalo siphikisana na kumbe sidinge indlela zokuhlanganisa leyo mbono ehlukeneyo sibe sesithuthukisa ke imfundo yabantwana. Aluba elayizolo libe linjengalamhlanje ukuthi akula ngitsho nombalisi okuyela esikolweni ngemihla ngemihla ngaye isizwe lesi asikho lapho. Isizwe lesi ngaye sesahle sanyubilika ngezemfundo. Kodwa ngenxa yokuthi bakhona ababevele bephiwe umbono ojiyileyo ukuthi bakhangele inkanuko zababalisi babuye bakhangele inkanuko zabafundi base bekuqathanisa babona ukuthi bangakuphatha njani. Silabo-ke abaqeqeshileyo namhlanje. Yikho okusokungumlando wesizukulwane sanamhlanje ukuthi kukhangele ezemfundo zingaziphatha njani. Ngakho-ke okusokusele kwamanje ukuthi laba sisiya phambili kasikhangele ukuthi okuzaletha isinkwa esikoleni kuphi, okuzaletha abantwana ezikolweni kuphi, ukuze elakusasa leZimbabwe lingasaleli emuva. Sinjenje ngathethi phakathi komncintiswano omkhulu wokuthuthukisa izisebenzi zelizwe ezakusasa. Yibo phela ababalisi bakusasa laba esibalahlayo namhlanje singaba. Yibo laba phela ababalisi bakusasa esibakhangelayo abazafundisa abanye abantwana. yibo labo odokotela sizabakhalala sibafikise ngapha yikho ungumlando omkhulu. So-ke ukuze ukubhalansise lokhu kumele ukubone ukuthi ukuphatha ngazandla zombili ukuthwale ukugijima lakho kodwa ukhangela ukuthi awuwisi ilizwe lakho phansi, awulitshayeleli phansi, kanti-ke njalo awutshayeleli phansi imfundo yabantwana, awulahli njalo ababalisi igabha labo ngenxa yalokhu okukhona emunweni welizwe. Yikho ukusiqumbaqumbayo ukuthi singaba baningi kanganani ezifunda ama-organizations kuyintando i-constitutional right yami, kodwa kakuthi ukuthi nxa usuyibumba wena usuzahle ufike ule mpendulo ezigcweleyo basithola sikhona akukaguquki kakhulu ngobuningi benhlanganiso, angakuboni ukuthi kodwa nazo ukuthi sifezi ukuphikisana lemizamo laleyana kodwa angakaboni i-impact yakho.
Yes, acela ufithizele ibutton lakho leyo sibe sesiya kubaba uJoseph Chuma. Jonga, we are joined by Mr. Joseph Chuma, a former member of parliament for Pelanda Popoma. He is also a central committee member of the ruling ZANU-PF party. Go ahead, Jonga.
Yes, welcome to our show, Honorable Chuma.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everybody.
Aiwa, tinokutambira ine mufaro. Ndombotanga hangu nekuda kunzwa kwamuri vaChuma maonero enyu pamusoro pemamiriro akaita nyaya dzekuvhurwa kwezvikoro. Tiri kuona kuti masangano echikoro, masangano anomirira varayiridzi haasi kutaura nezwi rimwe chete panyaya yekuti varayiridzi voenda here kuzvikoro kana kuti risairegedza kuenda kumabasa. Zimta is saying their members should go back to work, while ATUS and other organizations are saying their members should not report to work because they are incapacitated. What's your take on this?
Truly speaking, Wajonga, we are talking of the future of our children who attend the public schools. It's not affecting the private schools where the so-called bourgeoisie or the people with the money will send their kids to. So we are talking of schools that cater for us, the average people, to the poor people. And really, truly speaking, if we are going to come out there amidst all these problems that we are encountering, we have this pandemic upon us world over. It has messed up all our economies, not only in Zimbabwe, but even the biggest of them all economies, including America itself. And then here we are, government is trying to meet halfway with everybody. There is not much that is coming in terms of revenue, but we are talking of the future of our own children, not children that belong to someone else or to some certain sector or whatever you may want to term it. And then you have people who are going to still be adamant and say that, no, we are not going to hear anything. We just want to take to the streets. We are not going to go to work. Then honestly, I would say to myself, are we being genuine? If we have a cause, yes. Teachers' salaries are not what we would want them to be. So are the doctors' salaries. So are the nurses' salaries. So are the salaries of so many other civil servants and other employees of other companies, even private organizations themselves. But what we're saying is it's a give and take in this, at this moment, because of the situation that we've all been put to, whether willing or not willing, by this pandemic. And while we can negotiate, why would we not want to negotiate while we are in there assisting and trying to come up with solutions? Because like I said before, it is prudent for the government to definitely sit down with all stakeholders involved, that is the teachers' unions, the parents themselves, whatever other organization might want to come. At the end of the day, the person that we are really disadvantaging is that child who are supposed to be tomorrow's future teacher, tomorrow's future president, even tomorrow's future doctor, tomorrow's future whatever profession you can want to think of. And here we are here because of our selfishness, because of our short-sightedness, we are depriving that child the future. That is despite the hardness of the economy. This is where I would want to say I would definitely welcome a move by an association like Zimta if he says, no, let's go back to school and keep talking. We'll find each other, but while we are while we're saving these innocent children who, by the way, have not been to school for the past year now, since March last year when the pandemic started. Now it's March 2021. So really, who is fooling who? Who are we making to suffer here?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chuma. Let's cross over to Mr. Teoma Vinga, who is a human rights lawyer. He is in Britain. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much, Gibbs and Jonga, for having me on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So there is a huge human element in this scheme of education. You know, teachers are demanding their rights to have more money. They are demanding other issues, you know. So basically, who suffers here in terms of, you know, education and all these kind of things?
Well, I think what's important is to realize that the right to education is central to the child, to children in Zimbabwe, and to millions of them. And for it to be fulfilled, there is need for the authorities, for the state, to put in place sufficient infrastructure, human and financial, to support and fulfill the right to education. It cannot be fulfilled only by demanding that teachers be in schools without ensuring that they as workers have their needs and rights addressed as well. So the state has to seriously take the issue of education. In fact, there are recommendations in terms of the African Union that a substantial amount should be budgeted for and set aside for education. We need to see Zimbabwe get to that point where it prioritizes education when it budgets and puts money aside. At this point, also within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to ensure that schools, if they are open and operational, they are open and operational in conditions that secure the right to public health for both the teachers and the pupils. It would really be unwise and foolhardy for the state to push schools to be open without sufficient mechanisms to protect the health of the pupils as well as the health of the teachers as frontline workers. So you have to look at a whole range of things that need to be addressed, including COVID-19 PPE, including vaccinations, including sufficient salaries, including numbers in classrooms that enable social distancing. In other jurisdictions away from Zimbabwe, we have seen those kinds of mechanisms where the numbers of people in classes have been reduced and more spaces had to be created to enable safe and secure learning. So in Zimbabwe, I get a sense that this has not been addressed, and teachers have been raising these issues through their unions, but without sufficient response in terms of planning from the government of Zimbabwe. And that's a huge challenge that needs to be addressed, not at a political level, but at a practical administrative level, in order to avoid a catastrophe of a public health disaster because there has been inadequate planning and preparation.
Yes, Jonga.
Yes. Vamavinga ndofunga veruzhinji vangada kungonzwa muchitaurawo nerurimi rwaamai mashoko amataura pamusoro pemamiriro akaita nyaya dzedzidzo, nekuti tiri kuona kuti ndo chinhu chaakuramba chichingodhonzerwa kumashure nemapoka akasiyana siyana. Hurumende inenge ichipomerwa mhosva yekuti haisi kukoshesa basa revarayiridzi. Panguva imwe chete varairidzi vachipomerwa mhosva yekunzi vari kudzosera shure nyaya dzedzidzo nekuramba vachiramwa mabasa nezvimwe zvakadaro. Ivo vabereki vachichemawo zvakare kuti tiri kuisa mari, tiri kusungirira mari pagombo rengwe nekuti tiri kungobhadhara mari vana vasina chavanobuda nacho. Taurai tinzwe Vamavinga.
Dzidzo inokosha, ndiyo nhaka yeupenyu. Dzidzo ikodzero yemwana wese muZimbabwe kuti aiwane yakakwana yakaringana. Iko zvino zviri kuitwa ndezvekuti tichirarama munguva yedenda reCovid-19, hurumende inofanira kutora matanho azere anoonekwa ichikurukura nevarayiridzi kuti kana zvikoro zvichivhurwa zvivhurwe nenzira inochengetedza utano hwevana nevarayiridzi, uyezvewo nhuna dzevarayiridzi kuchema kwavo nekutumwa kwavo kuchigadziriswa, kana dzingave nyaya dzemari dzavanotambiriswa, kana zvingave zvekuti vane zvikwanisiro here zvekupfeka zvekudzivirira denda reCovid-19. Nekuti zvikoro zvikangovhurwa pasina kugadzirira uku, pane njodzi inogona kuitika yekuti muzvikoro ndo munezenge mava kubva muchipararira zvakanyanya denda reCovid-19. Zvinopinza panjodzi utano hwevarayiridzi. Saka haisi nyaya yekupomera ngana kana ngana, inyaya yekuti hurumende ine musenzekete wekuti izadzise kodzero yedzidzo uyezve kodzero yeutano. Saka haifaniri kungoti varayiridzi nevana vechikoro kuita vekusayirira semombe dzinosayirwa kumafuro. Inofanira kuti igadzirise kuti kana zvikoro zvichivhurwa zvinodiwa zviripo here, varayiridzi vane zvekuvhara kumeso here, zvekudzivirira zvirwere nezvimwe, uyezve uwandu hwevana muzvikoro kana mumaklasi hwatapudzwa here, kuitira kuti vanhu vagone kugara vakataramuka, kwete kuti vakaita chitsoko-tsoko kana kuti riri dzwi-tswi sembeva kana makonzo, nekuti izvozvo ndo zvinoita kuti chirwere chikurumidze kutapurika zvakanyanya. Saka ini ndiri kuona kuti hurumende haina kuisa mari parutivi yakakwana kana kuronga zvizere zvekuti isimbise vabereki nevarayiridzi kuti aiwa, iko zvino tinokwanisa kuvhura zvikoro tichiziva kuti hatina njodzi ingangomuka yeutano, nekuti zvese zvinoda kuti zvigadzirirwe zvaitwa zvagadzirirwa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mavinga. Let's go to Dr. Swiso Ndlovu. Dr. Ndlovu, so I think you can hear clearly here what Mr. Mavinga is actually saying. So what is your reaction to that?
Well, I think he has raised a very balanced issue. The interest of education is a balanced act of balancing the interest of the learners and the rights of the educators. That is what I was also speaking to when we said that as we pursue this agenda, it is under the practical circumstances that we analyze what action we should take. And it is a question now of understanding to what extent we can push the other side to deliver on those interests and rights. And then we balance it up that way. So I think he has raised quite fundamental points there. And as far as we have done, we have been engaging the employer in this issue of salaries. This is a contentious issue because it has never had enough address. Or rather, let me say it is a perennial problem. Why it has never ended and there has never been any satisfaction in any given year. We have been in and out of negotiations and we come out with not sufficient. And this is precisely because when we state national funds, it will look like the employer, the government, has other priorities as well looked at. And he goes into a balancing act as to what extent. Education in our budget has been receiving the biggest chunk for so many years. But unfortunately, that has not transformed our education. In other words, it has not always been a real transformation of the resources, but it has been a nominal rise in the kind of award. So definitely, we are still away far below the expectations of the resources that must be set aside for education. For example, we would have wanted 6% of the GDP in the country to be allocated to education every year. As our economy has been firing from all cylinders, that would be the ideal situation. But now we have a practical problem to solve. And the practical problem to solve is that our economy is altering. And when it's altering, the competition for resources now comes in. And that is where we come in also to render the balance as needed. That is our goal. And we continue to play.
Yes, izwe-ke ngesintu-ke ungakasihambeli kaNdlovu ukuthi khona okukhulunywa nguMavinga ukubona njani ube susihambela nje ungaqeda.
Yeah, uMavinga uletha umbono omuhle umbono otshengisa ukuthi inkanuko zababalisi lezi zabantwana yaqhathaniswa nxa ukhangele ezemfundo kube sokutshiwo ukuthi yikuphi okumele kuphiwe nasiphi isikali nanini ngokufaneleyo konke kumele kuhlukuniswe ngayekani kodwa okusokuthutsha khathesi ukuthi ilizwe kalilawo umnotho ongasuthisisa yonke into nanku kade salwisa ukuthi phosa umnotho welizwe ongafika okuyisithupha ekhulwini kakungene emalini yezemfundo kasikakubamba lokho esikulwisa uhulumende-ke ulomlando ukuthi ngaye inotho yethu uyayenza isikhulu yikho okumele lapho sikhangele khona ukuze sisenge kuhle sithole esikufunayo okwamanje umsebenzi omkhulu wokukhangela esilapho emganwini ukuthi kwabiwa njani kusiya ngaphi ukuze kuncedise ezemfundo zingaweli phansi zisale zilokhu zisiya phambili kanti-ke lezi zazo ezemfundo ziyabe zibiza izinto eziningi zifuna imali yabantwana ukuthi bafunde kanti ukuze bafunde bafuna ababalisi bekhona phambi kwabo befundiswa kanti-ke njalo empilweni yanamhlanje elepandemic kumele sizuze futhi abanye abazancedisa neza ukuthi i-learning esikhuluma ngayo ingene ngoba phela abafundi kumele bafunde ngendlela ezitshiyeneyo leyo imali futhi efunakalayo okumele ingene kwezemfundo ngakho-ke
yes siyabonga kakhulu-ke Endlovu ungadinela kusasa sizakudinga futhi ngesikhathi esilandelayo ungasilalela nje mfowethu sibonge kakhulu baba yes ungaqhuma khona apho ucingo lwakho so that was Dr. Sfiso Ndlovu Zimta, Chief Executive Officer. So now I think we've got 2 more issues to discuss here, Jonga. One of the issues is the recalling of Tendaibiti and his colleagues from Parliament by the People's Democratic Party, and then the refugee issue in Botswana. So let's start with the PDP issue. We've got Mr. Joseph Chuma, we've got Mr. Teoma Vinga, and we're expecting Mr. Ngovizita Khumalo to join us, but apparently his phone, I think, has got some kind of a problem. So go ahead, Jonga.
Yes, andotanga nekubvunza kuna vaMavinga kuti vanoona sei danho ratorwa nebato rePDP rekuudza paramende kuti idzinge nhengo dzaro muparamende vachinzi vakapinda mubatanidzwa weMDC Alliance vari pasi pebato rePDP. Saka bato iro rakabuda mubatanidzwa zvakuita kuti ridzinge nhengo dzaro dziri kurambawo dziri mubatanidzwa weMDC Alliance. Takazviona zvichiitwa zvakare kuMDCT, nhengo dzeMDC Alliance kuparliament dzichidzingwa. Munoti vaMavinga nedanho iri?
Ndezvemahumbwe zviri kuitwa nevari kuzviti ndivo sangano rinopikisa rePDP. Dambudziko riripo nderekuti hurumende yavaMunangagwa yava kushandisa mutemo nenzira yakaoma yatisina kumbobvira takaona makore 4 apfuura, ekuti iko zvino munhu anongomuka achitoti ini ndini ndinotungamira bato rakati, saka nekudaro ndava kudzora nhengo kuti dzibve kuparliament nekuti handichada kuti vange vari muparliament. Zvotoitwa izvi zviri kutora kodzero yevanhu kuti vasarudze vatungamiri vavanoda ichiiswa mudondo, nekuti chinofanira kuti chiitwe nechekuti dei zviri zviro kwazvo hurumende yaingotaura kuti hande kusarudzo patsva zvoonekwa kuti ndivanani vatungamiri vevanhu, nekuti iko zvino vanhu vava kunzi vane vatungamiri vavasina kusarudza kana kuti vavasingadi kuti vasarudze. Saka iko zvino hurumende kana isingatyi kana iri pachokwadi ngaitaure kuti vese vanenge vachinzi vabiswa muparliament hande yekusarudzo vanhu pachavo vane kodzero pamutemo mubumbiro remutemo renyika vasarudze vatungamiri vavanoda. Tigoona kuti ivo vari kuzviti ndivo vanyora tsamba nhasi vari kuti ndivo PDP vanofuma vakabata mavhoti mangani, nokuti ndokunopedzwa nharo dzese kuvanhu. Endai kuvanhu, kwete kumhanya netsamba dzinonyorwa muberevere moti bisai ngana muise ngana, bisai ngana muise ngana. Husiwo utongi hwejechetere hunodiwa muZimbabwe. Chinodiwa iko zvino ndechekuti vanhu vadzokere kusarudzo. kana kuri kunzi tione kuti kana kuri kwanga miririrwa navabiti kuHarare East kunonobuda ani ndiani anomira navabiti akawina. Ndozvoda kuti zvionekwe izvozvo, kwete kupinda mudare reparliament nerweseri muchishandisa zvisiri izvo. Iko zvino kukanganisa kuri kuitwa nehurumende yeZimbabwe hautsiwo utongochitetere kuri kuitwa.
Sorry, your phone, your screen is just frozen, you know. So anyway, looking at what is happening in the opposition, what's the meaning of all this?
Well, it's utter chaos. It's mind-boggling child's play that is there. It's undemocratic in the sense that those purporting to be leaders, let's say of the PDP now, and purporting to write letters recalling members of parliament, are undermining a basic tenet of democracy, which is that the people have a right to choose whom they wish to represent them in parliament. So the best way would have been for the government, if it fears nothing and if it is doing this openly and transparently, to declare those vacancies and go for by-elections so that we can see for sure who the people of Harare East, for example, want to represent them in parliament, whether they agree with this view that Honorable Tindayibiti should not be there, or they will say what. So by-elections would be the most democratic solution to this political madness that has gripped the parliament of Zimbabwe. The first time ever in the last 40 years. Is unbelievable. It needs to stop, and if democracy is to prevail, the best way to address this is to go for open, credible, free and fair by-elections where there is no violence. Then we see the people will speak through the ballot.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chuma, what's your take on what is happening in the PDP? It has actually recalled Tindayibiti and others. And Mr. Mavinga is actually blaming ZANU-PF for all this kind of chaos. Quiet, sir.
Only somebody who might decide to be ignorant to the truth will do that. Where does ZANU-PF come in the place of PDPs, MDC, A, MDC, T, MDC, whatever? We don't come in there as a party. We've got our own share of problems. We've got our own share of issues that we need to deal with. So I don't see why we would want to come in there and be part of what is happening in any other political party. And besides, as you all know, we already hold a 2/3 majority in parliament. So really, what will be the essence of going out there trying to sort of disrupt and disorganize people as if we had something to gain from that? We have absolutely nothing to gain from that. We as a party had already achieved what any party would want to achieve, and that is to have control of parliament. So really, their issues must be their issues, and they must learn to solve their issues. They must not come and want us to be giving them political lessons or giving them solutions to whatever problems that they probably have in their different parties over there. So whether PDP is recalled who or not recalled who is really neither here nor there as far as ZANU-PF is concerned, because already we're a might. We're a force to actually reckon with. We don't need any alliance of any sort. They needed the alliance. That's why they all came together to form the alliance to try and dislodge us from power, and they clearly failed because we still got the majority in parliament, and we're still there. The position is still unchanged. So I do not know why any sane person, and it's so disheartening, especially when it comes from my brother who's learned, who must have been able to clearly analyze and clear his vision and his mindset and his thought processes and analyze that. Look, come on, this is their own doing and they must sort it out on their own. The sooner they realize that, the better for them, and the faster they'll get solutions to solve their own internal problems. They have nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with ZANU-PF.
Tonga?
Yes, ndodzokera kuna vaMavinga. Mr. Mavinga, maybe you can explain why you think that ZANU-PF has a hand in the recalling of PDP members of parliament?
Chekutanga ndechekuti ZANU-PF saiyo hurumende iri kutonga uyezve ine vamiririri vari mudare reparliament vari kutambira tsamba chero kwadzabva vototi izvi ngatitevedzere, izvi ngatidzingei vanhu muparliament, vamiririri muparliament. Idambudziko rekutanga iro. Chepiri ndechekuti kana chiri chokwadi kuti ZANU-PF haina chairi kukonzeresa kana chairi kubata apa, ko inotadza neiko sehurumende iri kutonga kuti ingotaura kuti kana mati imimi munoda kubisa vamiririri vakaita savatendai biti nevamwe, ko chiendeka kusarudzo? Handiti kuti maby elections. Chinotadzisa kuita maby election chii? Dzimwe nyika chaidzo, vana Malawi, vana Tanzania, vana Uganda vakaenda kusarudzo chaidzo munguva ino yeCovid-19. Chinongodiwa chete ndechekuti vanhu vanonzi pavanovhota ngavange vakataramuka zvakanaka, vakashambidzika nenzira inoita kuti denda reCovid-19 risapararira, kwete kuti tinoda kuti tidzinge vamiririri vemuparliament vakavhoterwa nevanhu, asi hatichadizve kuti tiende kusarudzo. Ndopaunoona utsotsi hwandiri kutaura kuti pane chimwe chikiribidi chiri kuitwa. Kana vanhu vakamira pachokwadi ngavangoti kana zvirizvo kuti imi vari kuzviti ndimi vePDP munoda kuti mubise vabiti mudare reparliament, ngatichidzokerai kuHarare East kune vanhu vakavhotera vabiti, tochinovabvunza nenzira yeby election neimwe sarudzo kuti tione kuti vanoda ani kuti avamiririre, kwete kuti moti vanyora tsamba vari pasi pemuti ndovonzi chitipai kuti munoda kuti ani apinde mudare reparliament. Hazvisi izvo, kubirira vanhu, kutsotsa vanhu mavhoti avo, kutsotsa vanhu kodzero dzavo, nekuti vanhu ndo vakavhota. Saka kana vanhu vachinge vakavhota ngatidzokerei kuvanhu tinovabvunza kuti zvazvadai ndiani wamuchada kusarudza, nekuti kana vabiti vakati zvakanaka mati tadzingwa yamuri kuti PDP, kana vakada kumira vega vakazvimiririra, ipai vanhu kodzero nemukana iwoyo wokuti vataure kuti vachiri kuvada here kuti vavamiririre kana kuti kwete. Chandiri kuramba ndechekuti vanhu zviuru nezviuru vanovhotera vabiti, mumwe womunhu mumwe chete ofuma achiti aiwa ina handichada, kuti agopuwa iye mukana nerwesere kuti atsvake munhu wake anopinda mudare reparliament. Hazvisi izvo, hakuna utongi hwechechetere hunodaro hunobvuma izvozvo, kubiridzira vanhu kodzero dzavo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mavinga. Let's bring in Ubaba Usikhumbuzo Mlalazi. Ukhona khona apha ecingweni.
Bengicela ukumphendula engakayikhathali.
Bona just 1 second mbijana Juma.
Bengicela ukumphendula ngoba ufaka ama allegations against
What khuluma. Just 1 minute. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to correct my dear brother Mavinga on the notion ukuthi matsamba akanyogwa nePDP akatambirwa neZANU-PF ikadzinga vanhu muparliament. It is not true. The truth of the matter is that those letters go to the Speaker of Parliament, who is the head of that institution, which is the Parliament itself. And then after the Speaker receives those letters, he then informs the President as per procedure and as per the constitutional requirements to declare that seat vacant and therefore then call for a by-election and etc. So at no stage is ZANU-PF involved in all those processes. We are also a party that is also willing and wanting to actually go for those elections, because we are known to have had 100% record on winning by-elections. I'm one product of by-election that we did in 2015, if you remember, and the guy that had been recalled came in and stood as an independent in that same election. His name was Bektemba Nyati. I still remember him, and I still beat him over that election. Yet he had won earlier on, and then he was recalled because he had opted to actually join BT's party, and then the MDC recalled him.
Thank you.
We as ZANU-PF are always ready and willing to go for this by-election. But government, again, through the Ministry of Health and everything, after realizing our situation in Zimbabwe, because we are not going to do it like Malawi or America or anywhere else where they've held elections. We're also going to do it according to our own situation in our own country. We know our resource limitations and all those kind of stuff, which will actually make us be scared to say, let us venture and try and do an exercise that might
thank you.
repercussions that are tropically. So it is very wrong for anybody to try and implicate ZANU-PF in any of these kind of things.
So
we are also a party like any other party.
Siyabonga kakhulu Juma uvale imaki yakho khonapho ke sithatha ubaba usikhumbuzo Mlalazi amafutshane Mlalazi ungathini ngakhona ke osokuthiwa utenda ibiti labanye sokumele bephume edale lephalamende.
Yeah, my take on this one, mina mfuna ukubuza nje question eyodwa. Ukuthi educated as they are, why are they choosing to be crybabies? Because surely, mangakhangela ubaba uPiti, educated, I mean, someone as counter in countries is a think tank of their own party, but then why do they choose to have a constitution ezobayenza bakube nama-loophole bona ngokwabo as a party basuke kuthwangela ekhaya ubaba kuthwangela ukuthi sebenza ngomgalo. Now why when the constitution ngiyana sebe-abandona sebethi-abandona i-constitution yabo yena leyo izoyenza ukuthi ma ukuthi bathi bona i-ZANU-PF or whatever party ezoyenza ukuthi bethi to recall their own MPs kwenziwa ikufuna ukufana abakwenzayo bona befoma their own party kumele balandele i-constitution yabo. So i-constitution yabo ma ithi yona kumele stick to this party, ma uphuma kule party kumele uphume uyo-representa that party oya kuyo nge-ticket lona lelo. Ma uthi ungene nenye party bazokurecalla. So mina mbona ngani they are just shooting their own toes. So i-priority yeZimbabwe khona manje ngabe kuthiwa uPiti manje is talking about i-solution ukuthi abantwana beZimbabwe nababalisi abantwana bethu baya kanjani isikolo kungenamali. Into important amadlwane lawa siwabonayo opposition parties, they cannot control themselves. How are we going to trust them to run something like a country? I mean, I don't trust this people anymore.
Thank you very much, Baba Mlalazi. So in this last bit, maybe let's go to Mr. Mavinga. Just briefly about the refugee issue in Edukwi camp. What's going on there?
Well, it is quite heartbreaking that Zimbabwean refugees at Edukwi camp in Botswana, the vast majority of them have been denied their refugee status by the UN Refugees Agency. And what it means is that they are now, unfortunately, facing deportation or repatriation back to Zimbabwe. For a good number of them that Human Rights Watch has spoken to, these are not voluntary repatriations. They do not want to go back to Zimbabwe. They fear political persecution and that the authorities will not be in a position to protect them. And they would have wanted to continue to be in Botswana under the protection of the government of Botswana and of the UN Refugees Agency. Unfortunately, where we are now, it seems the Refugee Agency is quite insistent that they should be returned to Zimbabwe on the false belief that things have changed and things have gotten much better, which is not true.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chuma, just briefly, 30 seconds. What's your reaction to what Mr. Mavinga is saying? 30 seconds, sir. Mr. Chuma?
Thank you very,
yes.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to really comment properly because I had not caught that trend on the issue of refugees, so I might have to pass.
Thank you very much. So I think, Chonga, we have come to the end of our show today, in which we had Dr. Swison Lovu, the ZIMTA Chief Executive Officer. We also had Mr. Opet Masarahure of the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, who is the president of that union. Mr. Joseph Chuma, who is a former lawmaker for Belandaba Mpopoma, and is a Central Committee member of ZANU-PF. We also had Mr. Tewa Mavinga, who is a human rights lawyer, and Mr. Skumbuzo Mlalazi, a political activist based in London. Signing off from Maryland is Skip Stube saying, good night, Zimbabwe.
And Jonga Kandemiri, also in Maryland, saying, Mora Vakanaka Vatereri.
Bye-bye.